When Ekra had chosen the path of the daughter, she had imagined a life of adventure and glory in service to the Rivenhorn tribe. A chance to leave the suffocating confines of her village. A chance to avoid the dreary life of the sun, forever standing sentry. Or tasting the hot blood when some other tribe or beast of the Tellus forest was foolish enough to attack the Rivenholm directly. She had wished to face greater foes and to stand alongside her sisters in battle, a reflection of the revered daughters of the Soul Star God. To stand alongside Mother Arak, the greatest warrior the tribe had ever seen in generations. Ekra had ambition, sharp blades, and a warrior's heart. This was the way of the Rivenhorn, and while other tribes might sneer at their traditions, they were true. Ekra had thought herself worthy, fit even, to wrest command when Mother Arak grew old enough to succumb to her challenge. She had been wrong. She clutched the automaton, a plaything in the shape of some mechanized songbird that she had torn tooth and claw into a human child to claim, an automaton powered by her dearest battle sister and lover's Cryallis. Ekra hadn't known how to stop its incessant chirping when stealth was her ally in escaping the human city. She had wrung its iron neck like she had countless true birds in her years as a hunter, and it felt like killing her love all over again. Ekra had fled, the haunted wail of sirens filling her ears like the howl of a mother Rhydox mourning a lost calf. She'd had to remind herself that the alarm was merely some hateful human contraption, that humans were less than beasts, enemies of the cycle, destruction incarnate. But then Ekra remembered the child's eyes, so full of wonder and fear, so like Ekra's when she had been a cub, how it had spoken, its barbaric tongue almost melodic in that small voice. How the sight of the Cryallis she had spent months tracking had set her blood to boil. How, before she had known it, the child was as good as dead. Its blood had tasted sour and foul, as though Ekra had brought a curse upon herself, as though she had committed an unforgivable sin. She had tried to remind herself of what humans were, what they had done, but she could not. Now, Ekra limped through the woods, exhausted and steaming with sweat, straining to hear the baying of humans' hounds, so different from their wild kin. She'd left a trail, hadn't masked her scent, a rookie's error, a failure that had seen many fledgling hunters turned into mewling prey, and somehow she couldn't bring herself to care. If she was to fall to the humans, so be it. Ekra only wished that her Cryallis would have been returned to Elpis alongside her loves. Ekra was about to allow herself to succumb when a peculiar feeling began to prickle against her consciousness. A spark, almost nothing. Then it exploded through her, blinding her with a viridian light, a heat beyond anything she could imagine searing into her soul. A figure, beautiful and terrible, coalesced as her vision began to clear. Ekra knew her, Ashala, seventh daughter of Athel, ruler of the deep wood, had come to her and imbued her with new strength. "Rise, spirit of vengeance. Athel has need of you yet." Ekra felt the lady's words more than she heard them, a jolt through her burning core, and knew that she was to stand with a fellow sister in battle once more. With new strength, she drew and hefted her axes, gently placing the broken bird on the soft loam at her feet. If this was to be her last stand, she would die a true daughter of the Rivenhorn. She would die with her lady at her side. Lord Jotunn Heron, through his fugue and grief and exhaustion, barely heard the soldier. He was fixated on the mangled automaton the man held. It was his daughter's. In the rush to get her to the healer when she had been found mauled on the terrace, barely clinging to life, he hadn't even thought to check if anything had been taken. "Where did you get this?" he snapped, harsher on the wounded boy than he had intended. But his daughter barely clung to life, and if there was a clue about what happened to her, he would know it. The soldier stuttered, clearly taken off guard by his lord's sudden outburst. Heron was usually taciturn, but his patience had run out. "Out with it, man!" The soldier straightened, wincing in pain, as the field bandage across his chest boomed with fresh blood. He coughed into his fist and then began his report again. "We pursued the Karath beast through the forest until near nightfall, when we met it in an open glade. It had seemed exhausted, easy enough to run down, but when we came upon it, sir, it fought like nothing I've seen before. Put us to rout, killed the sergeant and 5 men. I was knocked flat, and when I came to, it was gone. Left this lying in the dirt." He held the plaything a little higher, as if Heron hadn't seen it. "The funny thing is, sir, the Cryallis is gone, and there's something else in the port." The man trailed off, as if unsure how to proceed. But one look at his lord's furious expression, and he began to carefully pry the thin metal panels of the bird's chest cavity. Lord Heron winced despite himself. The toy's construction had been a painstaking labor of love he had held for his daughter. It's some kind of plant, sir, but when you touch it, it puts words in your head. It says specifically to deliver to you. To me. He snatched the plaything from the wounded man's trembling hands and laid a tentative finger on the small green bulb rooted in the thing's cryalis port. The effect was immediate and disorienting. The voice was at once sweet as summer apples and as dangerous as a prowling sabrin. Lord Heron bolted past the young soldier out of his chamber to his stricken daughter's side. For the first time in days, Jotunn Heron felt a flicker of hope in his aching heart. The mercy of Athel. The voice swirled through his head over and over, sweet as blossom and deadly as a sabrin. The nectar of life. Salvation for the innocent, in hopes of a better future. Alright friends, thank you so much for listening to that story. That is our third place winner for the Legacy of Atmos lore contest, The Daughter's Path by E. Cunningham. And what a great story it is. Like, it really just frames a very tense, specific moment. I love this kind of short story format where we get these interactions with various characters. We see them kind of interacting. Like what it's like when a daughter of Athel speaks to a Karoth warrior. What the disposition of some Karoth warrior tribes is. And if you're a little bit lost here, I want to break just a few things down here because this really does kind of assume you know a little bit. So the cryalis is essentially the soul. It's a crystallized soul that every living thing on Elpis has. The lover of this Karoth warrior was struck down, the cryalis taken and put of all things into a toy. Because again, the humans don't understand the spiritual significance of these things. Like, they don't see it as the soul, they see it as like a battery. And so they put the battery in the toy and gave it to this kid. Now, what the cryalis can be done with as far as the Karoth tribes go is a bit of a mystery. We're still exploring that, although it will come to fruition later on. But in this instance, essentially, Ashala says, I have need of you. Like, you don't get to die here, you know, of being a spirit of vengeance. Like, I kind of need that in my corner, so rip out that, put a blessing inside of it, and run. And at first I was like, man, this story is intense. Like, it just opens up with like a Karoth warrior killing a kid. I was like, this is a bit much. But the fact that that is played throughout as being like a weight of guilt, that the Karoth had been told like, oh, these are like animals. Humans are worse than animals. They don't deserve any kind of pity. But then that kind of duality that happens when the warrior actually slays a child. Like, we have that all the time in the real world. You have propaganda, like, villainizing the opposition. And then, like, when you're face to face, all of that stuff kind of fades away. And you have to think to yourself, what brought us here to this point? In their case, a spirit of vengeance, an avenging angel trying to rescue a lost love. Now, to be clear, the child did survive. This is not a story about, you know, murdering infants. Ashala perceived the situation, realized, I need this warrior in my pocket, and it would probably be a boon to not have her like so drenched in guilt and suffering that she's useless to me. So put a blessing inside the toy, knowing it would be returned to her. And so my understanding of the end of the story is that from this seed inside the toy, the daughter is healed. Which, if you don't know, in the game, Ashala has quite a bit of healing power, so she could probably do that. And this is exactly the kind of thing that these short stories are great at doing, these snapshots of drama between factions where they struggle to understand what and why they're doing this to one another, what this war is for. And they come at it with completely different outlooks. Of course, the Karoth warrior is like, the love of my life, like her soul's been ripped out and is powering a toy. That is a grave offense and just a devastating thing to think about. Meanwhile, the humans are like, they came into our camp and mauled one of our kids for no reason, because they don't understand. And we as readers have all the perspective and can see their motivations and how this tension grows between the factions. Some characters, like Ashala, are willing to rise above and give blessings, show some sign of, for lack of a better word, humanity, some kindness, some mercy because of their perception of what is right and wrong. And so that's, a very fortunate thing here, but the same doesn't necessarily happen all the time. There are times when Ashala has to go to war, and it is a merciless one. So I liked it. I thought it was a great insight to the tribes, why, some of these smaller skirmishes might happen as one escapes the city. And overall, it was just a great, concise story explaining a little snippet into the drama happening in the Atmos Federation's borders. So thank you so much for writing this story in, and please, if you are listening to this and it excited you, please consider joining the next Legacy of Atmos lore competition. I have links in the description below to our Discord where we hold all kinds of events every single month, from painting to gaming to story writing, all these kinds of things. Get in there, jump in on the fun. And thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming.